that haven't gotten yours and read them, please go out and read this book. It is absolutely phenomenal. But before we get started, I would like to go over a little housekeeping with you. I just want you all to know that our question and answer feature will be available when we get to the Q&A session. So please have your questions ready for Chasten. This will be absolutely a wonderful moment to engage him. And also, I would like to remind all of you to please follow our code of conduct that the Friends of the Library Deputy Director, Lizette House, will post in the chat for you. It is important that we are all having a good and enjoyable time with each other, and as you see, that has just been posted. So now let's get on to whom we are all here to honor, to celebrate, and to learn more about. Chasten Buttigieg has built a wonderful name for himself as an advocate for teachers, inclusion, and the arts. Born and raised in Traverse City, Michigan, yes, he is an outstanding Great Lakes man. He received his bachelor's degree in theater and global studies from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and his master's in education from DePaul University. As you can all see, he has kept it in the Great Lakes, but he's now here with us in the DMV. Chasten most recently worked as a middle school drama and humanities teacher before joining his husband, Pete, on the 2020 presidential campaign trail. And that has a story in and of itself. In our country's biggest cities and smallest towns, Americans were heartened by his charisma, his empathy, and infectious positivity. In his moving, hopeful, and refreshingly candid memoir, I Have Something to Tell You, Chasten shares his story of growing up gay in small Midwestern town, his relationships with Pete, and his hope for America's future. The book was an instant New York Times bestseller, and I will tell you it's engaging and riveting. And also, if you don't cry, you didn't read the book. So it has some of everything for it. Currently, he does live in Washington, D.C., so I know you did, like many of us, you left the Midwest and came out here to the DMV, and welcome. And he is joined, of course, by his husband, Peter, and their two phenomenal rescue dogs. So, I want to thank you for joining us. I have the book here, of course, with me. Again, I want everybody to note I have this book, and we are going to go through and get started with questions. If you're ready for me, Chasten.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming me. Happy last day of Pride, but Pride never ends. June just ends. So it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, Tony. I'm a little intimidated by the Mensa thing, but we'll move past that. And I'm excited to hear your questions and dive in with you tonight.
Don't worry about the Mensa thing. I tell people it is, as you know, the ability to master a standardized test. But many people have many forms of intelligence and emotional quotients. And so I want everybody to know out there, everybody's smart and talented in some way, somehow. And you know that as one of America's great teachers. So thank you for helping our
feel better.
So our first question is really something that I was moved by following you and reading your words. In the past, you had expressed a sense of finding power as you reclaimed your story. And I think this is something that many of us can relate to as we grow and progress in our lives. Can you tell me more about your personal journey and how others may choose to follow a similar path? I just found your words profound.
Thank you. I started writing the book on the campaign trail and was intimidated by the process and thought, I don't have a book's worth of experiences in me. I don't know if my experience matters. And I was out there on the campaign trail for a few months feeling like I just didn't know who to be. And I felt immense pressure to be impressive and to be smart and to know everything. Not only, what Pete was saying, what he hadn't said, read all of the clippings, but to just be this figure right? And I was never political before I met Pete. Certainly hadn't participated in the political process like that before outside of voting. And I finally got to this point where it was so hard to wake up every day and be confused about who to be that I can't pinpoint it exactly, but I woke up one day and I just said, I either have to be myself or I have to go home. And so I just started talking about all of my experiences that wound up in the book. I started talking in front of crowds about growing up gay in the Midwest and what that felt like, what running away from home was like, what sleeping in the back of my car was like, what watching my mom battle cancer and the American insurance industry was like, and just sharing all of these experiences that frankly made me feel like I was somehow weaker of a person, weaker as an American, that I didn't figure it out all at once. It wasn't all shiny and perfect. And then I thought, more Americans have similar experiences to that than, being the perfect image of a celebrity, right? And the more I opened up about those things, the more I felt I connected with people. People would come up to me on the rope line and say, thank you for sharing this experience. That happened to me too. Thank you for talking about that. That was me too. I had a kid come up to me in California. I think we were in Oakland or Modesto, one of those cities. And he said, did someone tell you I was going to be here today? I was like, no, I'm sorry. I don't know you. He's like, because I came out, ran away from home, lived out of my car, went to community college, and worked at Starbucks. And it's being able to share those things where you're like, you know what, this is who I am. This is who I am, take it or leave it. And once I just reclaimed that story, like I am proud of it, I am proud of who I am, and I'm going to, continue to share that story. The more empowered I felt, the better about myself I felt, the better about the world I felt, the better about the work I felt. And I feel like if we can find a way, to drop into that, this is who I am unapologetically, then everything feels easier. Political work, love, friendships, family, it all just feels easier when you feel like you can be your authentic self. And I think that theme permeates through many chapters in the book, and I'm sure through the conversation we're going to have tonight.
Absolutely. I really like that you pointed out that you were able to move a younger person in their journey along life. But I think that also there are those of us who are adults who need to reclaim our story. And there are those who are even seniors who are just discovering their story and reclaiming it despite having lived a very fruitful and enjoyable life. So what you said is so appropriate. Well, one of the things that I want to really jump off from that point is really getting to what core message would you like to share with, and I'm very intentional about this, would you like to share with mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles of LGBTQ youth who may be fearful and unsure about coming out? Because so many things happened that, as you say, nearly paralyzed you, that really put your heart in a very difficult spot, in a dark place. What would you share to those who share love with us and are supposed to be our backbone?
Right. Well, when I was growing up here in Northern Michigan, it was just simply unspoken. I didn't know that there were other gay people. I spent 18 years of my life thinking that I was the only one, or that someone like me was so unique. And then I started to see these figures like Will and Grace on television and Ellen DeGeneres, and thought, well, I guess you can be like that if you're in New York or California, or if you're on television. But I, especially my younger years, I just thought something was completely twisted and broken inside of me. And I wonder what it would have been like. And I think this is the same message to parents, especially. What would it have been like? And this is no fault to my parents. They're phenomenal allies now. We have a fantastic relation. I'm going to have dinner with them right after this talk. What would it have been like if mom and dad one night were like, we just want you guys to know that we love you. And if you ever want to talk about something, you can come to us with no judgment. And say, and it's so awkward, right? You don't want to hear your parents talk about this stuff, dating and whatnot. But what would it have been like if they were like, if you guys are gay or trans or non-binary, or if you're confused or you have questions, please talk to us because we want you to be safe and we want you to know we love you. And then we all go, gross, mom, don't talk about that, blah, blah, pass the mac and cheese, right? But at least I would have known that my parents wanted so badly to make that space for me. And I think if you're a parent, either of a student who has, or of a child who has come out to you, or you suspect something, or even if you don't suspect something and you just want to make sure that they know, then you have to say it. You have to have the awkward conversation. People in your life will never know that you're a safe space until you let them know you are. And unless you have that conversation at the dinner table, or, it was a friend sitting on a beach here in Traverse City, Michigan, who turned to me and just said, I feel like you have something that you want to tell me. And if you ever want to talk about anything, I love you and I'm not going anywhere. And so many walls just crumbled in my world between me and what felt like freedom to be myself. And so if you're a parent, you have to say it. You have to have the hard conversation, and you have to say it all the time. You have to let your kids know that you love them. Even if you're scared and confused and you're doing the work behind the scenes to figure out how to be the best ally, you have to tell them. And it will be hard and it might be confusing and there might be so many questions and unknowns, but until you have that conversation, then they'll never know.
That is the best message I have heard in a long time. And I think that you have sent a message to family members and allies and friends that it's okay to say that this is not easy for them either.
Of course.
It's okay. I think that's the most difficult part in today's society is people don't always admit that it's difficult for them too.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much. And what I'm going to ask is the next question actually ties into part of our societal constructs and some of the things we have to overcome. And that's that people often stereotype men who love the arts. And you've personally been through this. If you are a person who loves the arts, you must be gay or more feminine, or somehow you're weak.
Yeah.
And you and I both know this to be totally untrue. However, that is the stereotype that I don't know how many people go through in their lives. Yeah. Tell us a little more about your personal experience with this stereotype and how did you eventually overcome it?
Oh, sure. I think, in a nation that has, traditionally been, well, let's not get too historical. Let's just talk about the surface level. I think to be in touch with your emotions, to emote, to be empathetic. It's not just about, loving jazz hands and tap shoes, in a big band show on Broadway. It's about connecting with other people and connecting with your emotions and connecting to a wider world. And that's where I found myself in the arts, the ability to be loud on stage, to fill up a room with my own voice, to feel like I could stand center stage in a spotlight and just open up. Whether I was playing a character or not, it was playing the character that actually helped me because I felt like I could be somebody else besides that closeted kid that terrified me. Mm-hmm. But I think you know where that stereotype comes from, right? If you like emotions, then you must be gay. Because men have so often and still been expected to be pent up, very, masculine, and to be masculine then is to have everything locked up inside of here and to not talk about your emotions and to not talk about things that hurt you or that you're fearful of or things that you love, things that move you to tears, things that excite you because you must be, here. And I think one of the things that makes the human connection so beautiful is our ability to connect with one another and to and the arts specifically allow us to step into somebody else's shoes and to see the world through different lenses and angles and to analyze our own place in the world. And what better way than to be a better man than to understand what makes me a good man. And what makes me a good man is a man that takes care of other people and takes care of my family and that loves deeply and that cares passionately. So if those things make me gay, well, that's a stereotype I went through high school with, right? And I'm sure many people feel that way sometimes too, but that's silly. That's silly to say that if you feel, then therefore you must be gay. And I guess if gay people are the only people that are actually feeling emotions, then good for us.
Well, let's say if that's the case, then we now know the question as to why gay people were created, to bring more joy. But what I really love about what you stated is that you have really pointed out that we are all connected to one another through our need to share emotions, our need to share connectedness. And one of my reasons for saying I think we all deeply respect you and admire you is that you had the audacity to write the book that was so needed at this time. So, I want to move forward in that, but I just really want to be your cheerleader because it's just amazing what you've done.
Thanks.
And by the way, in the arts, I know that you're not afraid to sing Celine Dion as you've done so many times with your mom. So maybe one day we can get you out here in the DMV and all of us will join you in karaoke.
Sing a few. Probably. I don't think I really want that. That might not be good for anyone.
Oh, I think that we all, maybe a few beers, a little hard cider, I think we'll all be fine.
Sure.
So, one of the things I'd like to move forward with is that I know this may have happened unintentionally for you, but you truly have become a leader in the LGBTQ community. And as that leader, what would you like to tell today's LGBTQ youth? And I would even say perhaps some adults, beyond the phrase that many have heard, it gets better.
Oh, that phrase. Man, yeah. When you're young, you hate that phrase. I hated people saying that. Well, it'll get better. When you're young and the world seems like it's caving in around you, you think, well, when? When is it going to get better? Because it is crushing right now. And sometimes you feel like you can't survive it. You can't wait for it to get better because if it doesn't get better right now, then you might not make it till tomorrow.
That's right.
And I felt that for so long. And I know that when people were so well-meaning when they would say it, it gets better. And sometimes it doesn't get better. You just get better. You learn how to guard yourself and protect yourself and keep yourself safe until you get to the place where it gets better around you. Sometimes when you're the only person that wherever you are in school or in your community, whether you're in rural Arkansas or, you're in the big city, sometimes the immediate world around you doesn't get better. It's just you get better at being yourself. And I think that's really important for young people to understand is that it's not just waiting for someone to file the paperwork. They're like, okay, it can be better now. It's not the flip of a switch. It's the world changing in a way that accepts you and embraces you. And that takes work and it takes hard work and it's not on you to do it alone. And a lot of people need to grow and to learn and to do better for it to be better for you. And you're not supposed to shoulder all of that by yourself. But a lot of young people in this country, and for that matter, a lot of older people in this country feel that way, feel so isolated and alone that they're the only ones. But my advice is to, one, believe in the progress and know that there are people like me who have your back, who love you and who want you to thrive and who want to see you thrive. But sometimes I know that phrase can be so frustrating. I remember, like I mentioned, feeling like there was no life beyond tomorrow. Would I ever be married? Would I ever find love? I could not imagine the world that I'm living in now. But it did get better, but it got worse sometimes. And it was bumpy and it was sticky and it was heartbreaking and it took a lot, but you'll get through it and it makes you a better person because of it. Everything that you go through to get to the other side, even though sometimes the edges are sharp, make you a better person. But you're not alone. You are never alone. And if you do feel alone, it's important, if anyone is listening, whether it's a parent or a young person, there's so many phenomenal online resources where you can find community and safety and acceptance, like the Trevor Project for parents, like PFLAG. Reach out and find community. If it's not around you, then find it digitally, because it's so important for you to be surrounded by other people who are going to lift you up and tell you how great it is that you're here.
I am so pleased to hear you say that. And, I'm honored to be able to say that Montgomery County has a wonderful base of assistance and support, that if you go on the Montgomery County government website, you can actually find resources for young students who are LGBTQ or who are trying to discover who their true self is. So you're right. There are resources out there, and we are all out here for you. And I would like to remind everybody, it's not just for youth. There are seniors who come out late in life. There are adults who come out later in life. And so we must be supportive of all of those around us, because they are our neighbors, our friends, they are our community. And having said that about us being in a community, you made a really good point that you can be in the center of what may be, to most people, the most loving place in the world, and you feel completely isolated and afraid. And at one point, as you note, in a significant portion of your book, you talk about running away from home. And that is a thought that runs through the minds of many people, especially some of our young adults. And so I'd like to know, what thoughts would you like to share with the many youth who are contemplating running away from home, especially if it was because of their sexual orientation?
The most important thing is your safety. If you're ever in an environment where you are not safe, then you are not inconveniencing anybody by getting out of an unsafe environment. Whether you're reaching out to a teacher, a principal, a social worker, a counselor, a police officer, whoever you stop and have the conversation with and you say, I am unsafe. You are never inconveniencing anyone to get out of an unsafe situation. Contentious situation, it's tough. Your parents aren't accepting. They don't believe in it. They don't affirm your existence. The most important thing is that you are safe. And sometimes we want to pack a bag and leave. And sometimes that might not be the answer, because even though it is hard, it might not be unsafe. But that's not a sweeping message for everyone, because everyone's case is different. I ran away from home because I was embarrassed. I wasn't unsafe. But then I put myself in some unsafe positions because I ran away. There are resources out there for kids who need to get out of their home. And again, for parents on the call, I know I caught my parents completely off guard when I ran away from home. And I'm sure that there are parents who are well-meaning, and who would never believe in creating an environment where their kid didn't feel that way. But you have to do the work. You have to make sure that your kids feel safe and loved every single day. And that they know that is a safe space. Same with teachers and same with librarians. You can't just believe that you're a safe space. You have to let people know that you're a safe space. Again, everyone's story is different. Everyone's story is changing. But the most important thing above all else is your safety. That you deserve to be safe. You deserve to feel loved. And you never deserve to be in a position that makes you fear for your life or your safety. And there are a lot of people who are ready to help you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that is profoundly powerful. And I again would like everyone to remember that although we may be older as adults, adults run away too. and it never solves the problem that you're trying to get at. And so I'm so glad to hear you remind people to seek help, seek assistance.
I just want to say, Tony, for that, it's never an inconvenience, right? Young people, you don't have to do the work yourself. We're the adults. We're supposed to be making a better world for you. We're supposed to be taking care of you. Teachers are supposed to be taking care of you. And if your family's not taking care of you, then there are other adults who are ready to help and take care of you. But you don't have to do it alone. It's not on you. And never be afraid to turn to an adult and say, my adults aren't getting it right, so somebody's got to get it right for me.
So again, you in your novel and your memoir, you tackle some really, really difficult topics, some very sensitive subjects. And one of the things that struck me is this issue of and this has to do with, regardless of sexual orientation, this issue of sexual abuse and sexual assault, those who cause us harm. And it's something that we as men rarely, if ever, talk about it happening to us, because it's not supposed to happen to men. And one of the things I want to know is, what thoughts or insights would you like to share with men about those who have experiences of assault or abuse during dating or during their relationships?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know if any of my advice is men specific.
That's fine. Assault and abuse are not gender specific. It's just that we as men don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to everybody. And man, I lived so many years thinking that I made a mistake somehow because of somebody else's mistake. I felt gross. I felt embarrassed. I didn't tell friends because I thought they wouldn't believe me. I was afraid that people would think I was being dramatic, or somehow I had caused it to happen myself. And nobody should ever have to go through any of those feelings alone. When you are violated, you don't have to, you shouldn't be forced to believe or feel that you have to keep that to yourself. Somebody else made a mistake. Somebody else hits your car. You probably tell your friends because it's their mistake and it's really inconvenient, right? Let's not equate the two. But it's not your burden to carry alone. It's not your pain to carry alone. And for a long time, I felt like it was, and I was really ashamed, and it made me feel gross and ashamed of my own self for somehow being in that situation. And going back to our earlier conversation about, I guess, what our society's idea of masculinity is often this very strong, emotionless man. And I'm supposed to be able to protect myself. I'm a man, stand up for myself, be strong. Why didn't I fight him off? Why would I have put myself in that situation? And, you and I could probably spend a whole hour talking about what it was like to go through that and live through that. And it's just important for people to know that that's another place where people really need your help as a friend or a family member. And making sure that people know that they're loved and that you are a safe space and that you can be a rock, you can be a shoulder. Because again, you don't want to carry that. You don't want to shoulder that your entire life. And I don't want to get into it too much, but we saw what happened in the news today. Your violator can walk free because of legality. And then people, ask these questions like, why didn't you report it? Why didn't you tell somebody? Why don't you call somebody? Because look what still happens in this country. So again, the importance of allyship, the importance of loving relationships, and it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't change anything about you because of the mistake somebody else made.
Well said. I mean, the truth is, it happens. It can happen to anyone. It's something that we all need to talk about. And it is never a burden we have to bear alone. And I thank you for opening up and sharing that, because I think it's not I think I know there are so many who needed to hear that tonight. So very many. Now we're going to move on to a lighter, more hearty note, because this is something that I know everybody's always curious about. You know, it's Pride Month. They want to know this, so I'm going to read it this way. Most American kids grow up hearing the stories of Snow White, the Frog Prince, and Cinderella. In your book, you do share your experiences of proverbially kissing a few frogs before you find Prince Pete. So tell us about the challenges and joys of finding love in the LGBTQ community, because yours is like the ultimate fairy tale. So,
you just want me to tell you about the frogs?
No, I don't want you to tell us about the frogs. I want to know how the frog turned into a prince.
Sure. Well, I guess it's just important for everyone to understand that you might kiss some frogs along the way. I mean, I don't know if it's just dating specifically in the LGBTQ community, but dating can suck. You know, I remember there was a question once talking about this book. I don't remember what a book event and no, it probably wasn't a book event, like interview or one thing where someone was like, I read the book and, you know, what do you have against men? Because you wrote like, you know, men or whatever the line is, like men suck. It's like, clearly I don't hate men. I'm a man. But we all go through, you know, people breaking our hearts. And my experience was probably not, you know, different than a lot of other people's experiences of not finding the right one or being violated or not being appreciated. And I guess, you know, looking back, I just also don't think I appreciated myself enough. I don't think I believed in myself the way I do today. But I also wasn't surrounded by, you know, or living with a partner who lifted me up the way Pete does, and someone who believed in me completely, who believed in every fault, who helped me with every problem, who made me feel like I could be my complete self. I could cry and laugh and dance and do everything around him because he loved me for me. And I didn't have to protect the maybe embarrassing parts to sustain a relationship. And if you ever feel that way, then you're in the wrong relationship. My husband doesn't dance often, but when he does, he smiles because he knows it makes me so happy. You know, at weddings, he's not always the first person to take the dance floor, but one of my favorite photos of us is us dancing at a friend's wedding, and we look so completely in love. I mean, we were, but because he's just doing this thing that he knows makes me so happy, the same way I entertain long dinner conversations about Joyce. You know, we lift each other up. We make each other aware of how this home is a loving home. So dating can suck. I'm sure, I know you'll find the right one. But please don't hide any part of yourself in order to impress somebody else, because then you're disappointing yourself.
You know, you're making me think of the Peter Gabriel song, Kiss That Frog. You have just encouraged everyone. If you have not listened to that song, go listen to it. And it actually echoes exactly what Chasten just said. Go out and kiss that frog. Eventually, you're going to find your prince or princess. And, you know, I think the most important part that you have shared with everyone is being your true, genuine self in the adventure of finding love. I really love the way you put that out there. Don't change who you are.
Yeah, if they're a frog, throw them back in the pond.
So one of the things I'm going to want to jump to, because we're getting close to our time to get to the people's questions. You know, you did something very unusual. You grew up in traditional America, Traverse City, Michigan, but you made a very non-traditional choice to take your husband's last name when you got married. What would you share with us? What really led to that decision, and how did your family and friends react to it?
Oh yeah, I didn't realize this was an issue, and then people really started asking me about it. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who have kept their name. I have friends who've done both names the way I have. I have friends who have changed their name completely. And we didn't really have a long conversation about it. It was just, I appreciated his family story, and I felt like it was the fusion of a family. And I guess I was just trying to be a fair partner and understood why he wasn't going to change his name as the politician who was already in office. But it wasn't like a will you, won't you? I think this is fair. It's not unfair. I mean, we didn't have any of those conversations. I just said, I think I want to tack on Buttigieg to my name. I think our kids will be Glesman Buttigieg. And that was that. It really wasn't a long conversation. And I've met people who have very different opinions about this. And I was in no way making any sort of political statement, or there was no agenda there. I just thought, I like the Buttigieg family. I like the Buttigieg name. I think I'm just going to tack it onto mine. And in a way that I feel like it's funny, I feel like my last names aren't my identity because I don't know a lot of Chastens. And I've always felt like my first name was more of my identity than my last names. So if you're thinking of naming your baby Chasten, please don't. I'd like to continue in the rare group of Chastens, but I don't know. It wasn't a long conversation, and I just like having it there. It makes me feel closer to his family, and there's no animosity or weird feeling about him not having my name in his. But I know that other people have strong feelings and opinions about everything related to that issue. But for me, it was really quite simple.
That is just absolutely wonderful. I'd like to remind everyone that this is an awesome book. It is a guide, a healing balm, an insight into the Buttigieg family, especially Chasten. It's just amazing. And as a result of this book, I'd like to remind everyone that Monday, October 11th, 2021, is National Coming Out Day. And one of the things, Chasten, you said was that you wrote this book, your memoir, was the book that you would have loved to have read when you were 17. What is your message for everyone, LGBTQ, heterosexual, whatever they are, on National Coming Out Day?
Yeah, National Coming Out Day isn't just for coming out. You don't have to wait until National Coming Out Day. There are no goodie bags for coming out on Coming Out Day. I think National Coming Out Day is more about acknowledging the fact that we have to come out. Acknowledging, the idea that we're still forcing people to have to say this thing about them that does not define them. For some of us, it feels like the smallest fact about us, the smallest identifier of who we are, and yet it becomes the biggest obstacle between us and the rest of the world. And sometimes it becomes our biggest moniker for the other people around us. So what are we doing to make our spaces in our country a place where we no longer have to force people to kick down closet doors and feel like they can now be their authentic self? And that's very specifically related to the LGBTQ community, but there are many other people who just feel like they can't be their authentic self wherever they are. So for me, National Coming Out Day is a way to, again, recommit myself to the work of making sure that my students and my fellow Americans never have to feel like it takes so much force to remove that door between them and the rest of the world, that I'm helping make it a little bit lighter. And that's for all of us. That work is on all of us. Again, please don't make LGBTQ plus people do all the work alone. If someone does come out to you, then please know how hard it can be to say those words. And if you don't have the words, you can always say, I'm sorry, I don't have the words right now, but I'm so happy for you, or thank you for sharing that with me. If anyone comes out to you, you can always say, thank you so much for sharing that with me, and thank you for trusting me with that. I've got your back.
I am giving you a standing ovation. I think that you have hundreds of us giving you a standing ovation.
Oh.
That is the absolute truth if ever it was spoken. Now I'm going to get into you, the middle school educator.
Oh boy.
And I think this is really important. Please tell us about the role that libraries have played in your life, and what are you currently reading? And there are those out there that have been begging me to ask this. What is your Hogwarts house?
Okay, I'm a Hufflepuff. Libraries have always been a safe space for me, and I didn't really discover the library until high school. It wasn't until there were, enough like nooks and crannies where it was mostly a hiding spot, a world to hide in and bury myself in books where I didn't have to worry about what was happening in the cafeteria and in the hallways. And that's what makes me so happy about libraries now, is knowing that there's so much more than books. The fact that they're the central point of a community, that everything is there, and knowing that they're just another piece of the puzzle in creating safe spaces for people in all of our communities across the country. What am I reading right now? I don't know about you, but the COVID was hard. Wrote a book, and then I couldn't focus on anything for about a year. I just trudged through books. I could sit down and read for maybe 30 minutes. But now I finally feel like I'm able to practice mindfulness, that I'm able to sit down and enjoy my coffee on the deck here in Michigan and read a book. I just started John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. I'm about a quarter way through Ashley C. Ford's Somebody's Daughter. That's the problem, is all these great books keep coming out, and then they just pile, and then I get a section into them. And I admire Pete's commitment to finishing a book before he really dives into another one. There are some for work that he's always peppering through, but I applaud his commitment. We had so many good ones. I just finished Brandi Carlile's memoir. That was beautiful. Broken Horses. Yeah. I've always admired her music. The list grows ever higher, especially now that we're in DC and we're surrounded by even more beautiful independent bookstores. I'm just always So.
Well, we are very happy to know that you are a book aficionado, and maybe one day we can get you just to come in and read a book for our kids.
I'd love that.
Oh, then you know what? We're going to take you up on that. You can pick the books and read the book to our kids.
Perfect.
Now I do want to thank you for sharing your story. And I, again, want everyone to remember this is a phenomenal memoir. I have something to tell you. He really does. If you don't know, he really, really does. And what I'd like to do at this point is move forward after thanking you, Chasten, for just a wonderful, wonderful moment. We are going to come back and answer questions from our guests. But we would like to now hear from Beth Chandler of the Montgomery County Public Libraries about how to check out your book and how to access other LGBTQ resources all year round. Because as Chasten reminded you, this is just a month. It is not the end of being an LGBTQ ally or a person who is LGBTQ. So thank you, Beth.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Chasten. We do have Chasten's book in 3 formats, traditional print, ebook, and e-audio. Majority of our branches are open again. So you can go in, just hop on our website, and right near the top of the page, there's a link to tell you which branches are now open. You can go in and check out books, or you can use our e-resources. And we have not only books on GLBTQ topics, but documentaries on DVD, graphic novels, one of my personal favorites. And it's all across the GLBTQ spectrum, as well as having people of various ethnicities and ages, fiction and nonfiction. And if you just want to sit at home, our wonderful Overdrive has a large collection. You can see just a few examples right here on the screen. And we'll move on to another screen. We have Hoopla Digital, which has music. And in addition to the audiobooks you see here, you can see specifically Celebrate Pride Month. We do have some relevant books, audiobooks, and graphic novels. So check those out too. All you need is a library card. If you have the digital only card from during COVID when we were closed, bring it in and we can give you access to everything. You also have Canopy, which has this Celebrate Pride Month, and also all year round on Overdrive. I hadn't mentioned, but we have special rainbow reads for adults and rainbow reads for teens. You can take a look in those two sections, browse through. We update them regularly, and there will be still more coming in. Something for everybody. And if you want to suggest purchases, if we don't have something, whether it's a book, a video, audiobook, please let us know. The website's right there on the page, or you can contact the library and have them help you out with suggesting purchases. And please come to the library, come to our website, come in person, come enjoy our events. We had our first Drag Queen Story Time this month, as well as other events, finishing up with this one.
Beth, I want to thank you so very much. We have an award-winning, top-notch library system, and you have only shown why it is one of the best in the nation. But as we move forward, we got to get back to Chasten because they are jumping out here with questions for you.
Oh, yes.
So I am going to throw the first one at you, and this one's actually really moving. Chasten, I'd like to present you with this one, and the question is, how can LGBTQ adults work to make schools safer for LGBTQ youth? What do you think needs to happen in education spaces to create better environments for LGBTQ, specifically trans students?
Well, that's great. There are so many questions, and I'm going to try to burn through as many of these as I can with you. And I was trying to respond to some people. If you have to ask if you're a safe space, then you might have some more work to do. And so some of that is asking your students and asking for their input. That can be as simple as creating an advisory board in your school where students can give you honest opinions. You should have a Dropbox where students feel they know they have the opportunity for anonymous feedback. You can do simple things like having flags, having stickers that say, like on your classroom door, that say this is a safe and inclusive space, and then have the conversation in the classroom about what that sticker means. And let your students know what your community guidelines are, what you expect out of other students. Let them know that they can come to talk to you. Again, it's that thing about having the conversation. You can't just put the sticker up and say, well, I put the sticker on my door. It's a safe space. You have to continue doing the work so that students can begin to feel like it's a safe space. Some of that is vulnerability on your end. Some of it is continued conversations with your students. But I would be asking them for their input. I would be having the tough conversations, and I would be also offering events or services at the school where students can see you in action. Maybe they're not participating yet, but they can see you doing the work, putting in the work, and not only making the space for times when it's hard, but celebrating their existence as well.
Thank you. Now, this one's going to stun you. This session has gone international. And so we have greetings from Germany. And so the question that has been sent to you is, how has your time in Germany shaped you and your journey?
I was going to try to do the answer in German, but it's so bad now. I would have to have at least 2 beers. Germany was just one of the pieces of the puzzle that saved my life. I mean, it was the first time I was able to come out to people. It was the time where I felt the freest as a teenager. I was studying hard, and the world had never seemed wider and more full of possibilities. It was such a great time. I went on the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange Program, which was a fully funded scholarship between the American and German governments. It's the only way that I could study abroad. It definitely helped to come home and say, don't worry, mom and dad, it's free, sort of. And I would strongly encourage parents to talk to their kids about studying abroad. If you're a kid on this, you're a student on this conversation, I would strongly encourage studying abroad, either your senior year or do a gap year or while you're in college. It completely changed my worldview. It helped me grow as a learner and as an active participant in society. And plus I came home pretty fluent. I tested out in college, so haven't used it in 10 years. But there's so many benefits to gain from studying abroad.
I think you have just made many people in Montgomery County extremely happy, because you may not realize this, but Montgomery County is the most diverse county in the United States, according to the United States Census.
Oh, wow.
And literally more than 40% of our county speaks English not as their original first language.
Wow, awesome.
And so you are at home with those who love international and intercultural experiences.
That's sick.
So now our next question is a really good one. Being one's authentic self is a key to positive mental health. How can we help one another to be more authentic?
Oh, there's so many great things. And I love that more and more people are committing themselves to destigmatizing mental health. And the thing I love about, like Pete and I at dinner, we share our high, we share our low, right? And therefore we're making a space where it's okay to talk about the things that were hard. And it's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to open up. And you can do that with your friends as well. I have a great group of friends where, one, we make each other aware that this is a space where you are allowed to talk about being sad, to talk about being confused, to talk about being anxious. And I will be patient and I will listen. I will actively listen. And we all need that. We all need that in our life. So again, it's that thing with your friends, it's that thing with your family where you have to let people know that it's okay to talk, it's okay to share, and that you won't feel judged for saying, you know what, I'm depressed. Especially in this last year, or I feel anxious, or I feel like I don't have a grasp on everything. It's really, really important, especially, now after this past year, we have to be having those conversations with one another and for ourselves.
No, it's really great that you point that out, that we all can help each other become our more authentic selves and be supportive. And this really gets to, I think, a question that another one of our participants has asked. And it's intriguing. How do you and Pete deal with people telling you how to be gay?
I don't listen to them. Anytime someone is telling me how to live my life, I immediately tune it out. I am a small fraction of a large acronym, and my experiences are not everyone else's experiences, and queerness is not boiled down into one set of experiences or existences or expectations. There's no agenda. There's no point system. It is harmful to other people when you are telling them that there is a right way and a wrong way to exist. I am a grown adult. I can handle people being mean to me online, but there are young people in this country who watch the way you are treating other people online, who I sometimes fear are watching the way people are talking to me online. And when they're telling me there's a right way and a wrong way to exist, they might question if they're existing appropriately or whether or not they should exist at all. And that is why we have to be very careful about how we are interacting with people online, how we are interacting with people on social media, and what we're saying about other people, especially when it's related to their existence. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm a grown man. It's very easy for me to be, scrolling through Twitter or something and be like, okay, thanks for the input. I didn't ask, but it's very hard when you're a young, queer, closeted, confused teenager and someone's saying, well, they're not doing it right. Well, it should be this and it shouldn't be that. And then that's what makes that door heavier in the closet. And that's what makes it harder to come out. That's what makes it harder to be your authentic self. is when we perpetuate this idea that queerness must look a specific way. That in order to be gay or to be LGBTQ, then you must check all of these boxes and only exist in this certain way. And that is not helpful for anyone.
That is so true. And thank you for reminding everyone that it's a small aspect of who people are as individuals. It's not their totality as a person. Let them define themselves. Let them show you their genuine self. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, I have an important question that everybody is dying to know.
Yeah.
Will you return to the classroom one day? Can we get Chasten Buttigieg to be our kids' teacher? Come on.
I would love to. I'm trying to figure out the right way. I'm trying to figure out what's next for me right now. I'm working on the young adult version of this book, which I hope will come out in time for back to school next year. And that is a full-time job right now. And so I feel like I get to be a teacher in many ways. And right now, what's next is a very hard question looking beyond these next few months of writing a book. But I appreciate that. And I love being in the classroom.
Like, I want to get a few kids in the DMV so stoked that they don't know what to do. They're like, oh my God, they can get Chasten.
I get stopped on the street. I have been kind of taken aback by how many parents stop me on the street and tell me about their kid's school and tell me how I should teach there, which is truly very flattering that they would want their kid to be in my classroom.
We're going to treat you like an athlete. Chasten Buttigieg is a free agent if you can get him. But first, he must finish his next book. You know, this actually, we're going to wrap up this evening because it has been a truly fun-filled evening, a great adventure with you. We really hope to have you back. If we can get you to read stories for our kids, we would love it. You are a role model. You are a mentor. You are one who has opened his heart to a nation, even when it has been painful. And through that, you have brought us all inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing your genuine, true self with us on this last day of Pride Month, because I don't think there would have been a better way to end it.
Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate that. For everyone in the Q&A window, I see some phenomenal questions. I see you all. You can always tweet questions at me. I don't know if I can get to all of them, but I appreciate everyone being in the space. Please remember that Pride doesn't end, June just ends. So we go into July having each other's back, celebrating our existence, our shared existence. And please recommit yourself to doing the work so that everyone doesn't have to do it alone. Tony, thank you so much for your questions. I don't feel as intimidated now as I did at the beginning. I hope to see you there at the library someday.
Absolutely.
And thanks again. This was beautiful. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you. I don't think we could have had a more uplifting guest than you have been for us this early evening. And so everyone, this does conclude our program. I want to thank you all for joining us and thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn our program over to our esteemed executive director, the wonderful, the amazing, the driven Ari Brooks, who will give closing remarks and tell you how to get your own free copy of this amazing book.
Well, thank you so much for that, Tony. Thanks to all of our speakers tonight.